Aesthetics, drawing from the past, synthesizing across the fine arts for a fresh and new artistic expression, taking the old and making it new again. In this session, we're going to be looking at some works from the past by esteemed artists, and we're going to examine how artists from a more modern contemporary setting have taken those works and applied them to their own artistic efforts to create a synthesis across time and across space to create a new presentation that enriches and enhances both the earlier artistic expression but also the new one. We will be using primarily literature and painting as our works to draw from, and we will be applying modern, more contemporary musical compositions and songs that relate to those artworks to show how they can inspire and enrich a modern interpretation or a modern expression. Aesthetics is essentially philosophical. Artists and audiences create and engage with artistic expression to think and to feel. The core of this creativity and engagement involves meaning, value, and appreciation. In addition, artists and audiences also gain a deeper and richer understanding of themselves and of others, and of the world at large. The combination of philosophical elements with artistic endeavors and the experience of artistic works provides opportunities for personal growth, along with appreciation for others and celebration of the highest and the best of what it means to be human. As a philosopher and a theologian and an artist, I know this well. Because I also am a Christian and a person of faith, my approach to both art and philosophy is informed by and influenced by my beliefs and spiritual experiences. And this is, of course, true for everyone, regardless of what their own personal perspective is regarding metaphysics, theology, and philosophy. This kind of influence is true for everyone. Beliefs and experiences, regardless of what they may be, cannot help but produce effects concerning what we think, what we feel, and how we choose to express such things. I've also found that one of the most profound and powerful effects of artistic expression is forged when connections occur across time and space among artists and audiences. In this way, philosophy as art transcends time and space. Sometimes art from a contemporary time and place draws from artists and their works which have come before them. New works emerge from these encounters, and the new works express in new ways some of what has been gleaned from the works of the past. This synthesis has the power to make expressions from the past fresh and new, without diminishing those works, but also without those newer expressions becoming innately lesser or inferior. The point is not to think of something which has never previously been thought of, or to create something so original that no one has ever attempted to do so before. After all, only the superlative being, God, is capable of something like this. But the goal is to take what others have offered and to draw from those things, to be inspired and challenged to create things of one's own which also aspire to the highest ideals of philosophy and of art. As I have said, I am a person of faith. Therefore, my philosophical and artistic endeavors are attempts to express God's truth and beauty in ways that inspire and challenge others to consider who they are, what life means, and how they can offer their own contributions to the great gallery of human experience and expression. Here, I'm offering you the opportunity to experience some of these philosophical and artistic expressions from artists who have forged such connections with other artists and their works from a range of times and places. I hope that these examples serve to illustrate what I've said thus far. In addition, I hope they inspire you to keep making connections of your own, to think deeply about those connections and to consider how you may express yourself to offer your very life as a living work of art. I'm convinced that you can. Everything, after all, is an opportunity, and the possibilities are myriad. So, we'll begin on our little adventure by looking at Don McLean, the great American singer and songwriter who is best known for his hit song, American Pie. Well, Don McLean loved Vincent van Gogh and his painting, Starry Night. And as a young man, he would go to study it at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, attempting to think and feel all that Vincent was attempting to express. Eventually, Don created his own artistic expression, a poem set to music, which became a very popular song in the 1970s and which has stood the test of time as one of the loveliest melodies and nicest pieces of poetry ever created. Don McLean bridges a gap of more than 100 years, making Vincent's painting, Starry Night, fresh and new again through Don's music and his poetry. In so doing, he creates a new work of art for the world to ponder and enjoy. This song, Vincent, is included here for you to experience. In addition, I've included one of my songs that I wrote during the past year as a tribute to Don McLean and what he did with Vincent, in which I incorporate several references to Don McLean's other works as well as American Pie and Vincent. And I call that piece Another Starry Night, and I hope you enjoy it. The second example we'll be looking at is a piece by Gordon Lightfoot, Canada's greatest singer-songwriter and the country's national poet. At some point in his life, Gordon Lightfoot had read Miguel de Cervantes' novel Don Quixote, and he became intrigued with the story. As a result, he wrote a song based upon the picaresque novel, capturing Quixote's romantic idealism in a powerful and poignant way, while also connecting this idealism and romance to Gordy's own persona. As he expressed it, Quixote may be mad, but he is mad in the best possible way, seeing people in the world not simply as they are, but as they could be, and in this is hope. The melody and musical style he created also captures the feeling of a knight riding his horse into conflict to preserve ideals. Ideals such as faith in God, truth, friendship, the virtue and beauty of a lady. Gordy's song, Don Quixote, is included here, and if you have never read Cervantes' novel, you should take the time to do so. It will be good for you. I would also encourage you to take a look at The Man of La Mancha, the Broadway musical, and the film starring Peter O'Toole and Sophia Loren. This is a musical that I myself have directed in the past, and I love it. It's one of my favorite musicals, and I think you would enjoy it. I'm also including another one of my pieces, which was inspired by the novel Don Quixote, which I read again here recently because my daughter bought me a really nice copy. So I sat down and read it, and it's just a wonderful experience. But I wrote a song called Weaver at the Loom, which incorporates this idea of ideals and tilting at windmills and believing in the impossible dream. So I hope you enjoy it as well. Now, the third example we're going to take a look at is by Eric Andersen, who is a legendary singer-songwriter who's written hundreds of songs in the genres of folk, beat, rock, blues, and jazz. He has also composed film scores, produced fine works in photography, and hosted many arts festivals in New York, Paris, Brussels, and Tuscany, Italy. Through these, he has presented his own works and the works of other known artists, while also introducing new artists to a wide audience. He has been commissioned by the families of George Gordon, the great poet Lord Byron, Albert Camus, and Heinrich Böll to adapt the poetry of these writers to music and to write original musical compositions to honor those artists. These works are published and available for purchase online. Eric is also a connoisseur of literature and visual art, and as such, he has created original songs which connect to styles and genres such as Romanticism, Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Surrealism, and Modernism. His song, Six Senses of Darkness, although it is not connected to any one specific work of art, captures the mood of both Impressionism and Surrealism. As he describes it, the song is really an oral painting, using words and notes to create a tapestry of sound. As you experience this work, allow it to penetrate your mind and heart, to lift you into the ambiance of its artistic expression. I would also recommend his album Ghosts Upon the Road, from which this piece is taken, as a further exploration of what I'm sharing here. I would include here the Imagist poetry of Arthur Rimbaud, French Imagist poet who also was a favorite of Eric Andersen, and I think has influenced his work. Certainly, Eric Andersen's song, Dream of Rimbaud, is a direct tribute to this poet. But I think Six Senses of Darkness also connects very well with Rimbaud's poem, Dawn, which I would encourage you to take a look at. Now, the fourth artist we're going to consider is the iconic Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is one of the most prolific songwriters in the history of music. His influence is immense, and his songwriting is superb. His knowledge of literature is impressive, and his poetic skill is nonpareil. He has written entire albums of songs in which each individual song relates to a poem written by a poet from a previous era. Poets such as the Imagist Rimbaud, or Baudelaire, or Verlaine, or Romantic era poets such as Keats and Shelley, and even Renaissance artists such as Donne and Shakespeare, all have made their way into Bob Dylan's original compositions and his catalog of music. The piece included here is drawn from an anonymously authored ballad that goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. The ballad is called Lord Randall, and it's actually a tragic love poem, love song, and a murder story. Dylan takes this murder ballad and adapts it musically, applying a modern spin and a modern context for the work, while retaining the irony and ominous textures of the original. Dylan's work is appropriately titled A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, and the spin he puts on his work is very modern and even apocalyptic, as he widens the ominous textures of Lord Randall to include all of us and all of our lives in a modern world which seems to be determined to spin out of control and perhaps lead to time in which death and destruction become the bywords of modern humanity. For our final example, we return to Gordon Lightfoot, who's written many ballads and lyrical songs. He is unrivaled as a musical narrative storyteller and his romantic and poetic voice. He is a purveyor of historical epic and adventure. His works, the Canadian Railroad Trilogy, which was commissioned by the Canadian government, stands as an epic masterpiece detailing Canada's development through the building of the Trans-Canadian Railroad. In addition, one of the most famous songs he has written is based upon the worst shipping disaster in the history of the Great Lakes, in which the immense iron ore ship, the Edmund Fitzgerald, was lost in a November storm and for many years was a mystery, that no one really knew what happened and why. And Gordon Lightfoot took that tragedy and, on behalf of the families of the sailors who were lost, wrote a song called The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which became the #2 biggest song in the world in 1976. He sang it for the original memorial service for the families, and they much appreciated that. And he did it again at the 30th anniversary of the loss of that ship, and eventually was so revered that he was included honorarily as part of the crew of that ship in the Sailors Cathedral Museum in Detroit, Michigan. I strongly recommend both of these songs to you. You can find them on YouTube, on the internet, and I think you'll be quite impressed with his musical composition abilities and his style and his artistry as an artist, a musician, and a singer. But today we're going to look at a different song. It's a song called Miguel, which is set in the Old West on the Mexican border and details the tragic love story of a young cowboy and a beautiful Mexican girl and the child they conceive together, and then what befalls both of them. The song, Gordy has said, is actually drawn from an old English ballad written by Alfred Noyes, and it's titled The Highwayman. The storytelling, the ballad, the romantic lyricism that produced this tragic and poignant effect is unforgettable. And Lightfoot, I think, wisely recast this story in another time and place to make it fresh and new. Lightfoot's song, therefore, tells its own story, but draws heavily from the narrative in Noyes' poem. And while his song, Lightfoot's song Miguel, tells its own story, which he chooses to set in the late 19th century in the American West along the Mexican border, it resonates accurately with the original story of a highwayman in England centuries ago. Along with Gordy's offering, Miguel, I've also included one of my own pieces based upon Noyes' poem, which is called The Highwayman, which really tells the story as a musical ballad, but keeps the setting true to its original. I hope you enjoy both, and I strongly recommend you look up Noyes' poem and give it a good reading. I think you'll find it impressive as well. I hope you enjoy these works and that this little foray into artistic connections spurs you on to further explorations of your own. And if it does, then I will in a small way have succeeded in perhaps inspiring and encouraging you to find your own path as an artist and to draw from those who have gone before to produce great works for yourself. And I think you and those around you will be blessed.